Thank you. Thank you. So the MindMine Institute, which, as all of you are aware, has been over the last more than a decade looking at issues to do with India, Indians, Indian industry, India's economy, and India's global relations. It has looked at many issues and very often has been ahead of the curve in either raising concern of issues of national interest or helping to guide thinking and public thinking in private conversations, as also our public platform, which is the MindMine Summit. So the MindMine Next is the new digital platform which will allow all of us to exchange ideas with a set of experts. We have three experts with us today. Akhil Bansal, the Deputy Head of KPMG in India, who will moderate this session. Thank you very much, Akhil. And TV Mohandas Pai and Sanjeev Bikhchandani are the two speakers that we have, and I will join them myself in this conversation as well. Now, neither Mohan nor Sanjeev need an introduction, so I'm not going to give one to all of you. If you're living in India and you watch TV anytime and you don't know these two gentlemen, then I'm a little bit concerned about you. But just bear it to say that for a conversation about the situation post the pandemic that's facing us right now, and as we begin to come out of this, there are serious and important considerations that we need to apply our minds on now. At this moment, while we have on the one hand to address the health crisis that is taking place, we also need to figure out a way to apply our minds to thinking, innovating, ideating, and getting ready for the withdrawal of the many restrictions that the world is facing. Although the view is that the impact on the economy will last for a year and a half, maybe two, but we will attempt to get our lives back to somewhat normal much before that. When it exactly happens is a question which is open for all of us. So with this introduction, I will hand over back to Akhil, the moderator of this session, and just say that we will do more of these. We will bring subjects of current and future interest to you, and we would more than welcome suggestions, ideas, even criticism to bring to our attention things that you think we need to talk about, we need to bring to you as more live sessions. Thank you very much, and over to you, Akhil.
Thank you, Mr. Munjal. Good evening, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to be moderating this first of its kind digital session by MindMine on a very relevant topic beyond the lockdown. And I'm completely honored to have this esteemed panel of true thought leaders, knowledgeable, Mr. Sunil Kant Munjal, Mr. TV Mohandas Pai, and Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani. Thank you, three of you, for joining the panel. Well, to begin with, let me share some of my thoughts for a minute or so. This COVID-19 is quite possibly one of the biggest black swan event that our generation, or maybe few generations, have ever faced. Since quite possibly the Spanish flu in 1918. Various estimates are coming up on how it will impact the economy. The latest one which I read was from S&P, which talked about the growth rate of the world economy crashing down from almost 3% in 2019 to 0.4% in 2020. There are various other estimates which suggest that there would be a recession, a degrowth in 2020, and quite possible. But what is interesting is that right now, all these estimates are evolving and they are facing downwards revision as the pandemic keeps unfolding. A lockdown, unprecedented scale has been implemented globally, including India, which has seen one of the most stringent lockdown. While this lockdown has certainly helped curtail the spread of virus, but the economic impact will be far-reaching, and we will require time for recovery from the impact of this. Well, there is the lockdown, how long will it continue, is yet to be determined. Even in, especially in India, maybe we are all expecting that it will continue for 3 to 4 more weeks. But I think it's time that we start discussing that what will happen after the lockdown is over, and we means what is government supposed to do, what are business leaders supposed to do, and what we as an individual should do to make sure that our recovery is sooner than later. There is a high level of uncertainty and negativity on one side, but at the same time, there is always another side to it. The opportunities in it. As someone said, you never have real changes unless you have a time of crisis. And if I add another saying to it, let the crisis not go waste. I'm sure there is a optimistic view that we shall overcome and come back stronger than ever before. But let me bring in my panelist into the discussion. And Mohan, if I can start with you. And I would request you to briefly talk about how do you see this pandemic and the possible impact on economy. And in particular, if you can answer one question. If you look at, if you have to list down the initiative the government of India should take as a relief package or as a economy booster, especially for the MSME and the informal sector, which on the one side has been a great source of employment, but are most vulnerable to this economic disruption. So over to you, Mohan.
Thank you, Akhil. Like Sunil said, this lockdown is unprecedented in human history, at least for those of us who were born a little while ago. And like you said, since the Spanish flu, we haven't seen it on such a large scale. But even then, we are not sure whether the lockdown was there all over the world. But be that as it may, getting locked down for 30 days, 45 days means several things. One, there is no revenue for businesses. There is no business happening. Everything is shut down. There are some transactions happening, money transfer, etc., but businesses are shut down. So we have seen vehicle sales come down, housing sales come down, travel, aviation, airports shut down. We've seen every activity like entertainment shut down, tourism is gone. So many fields of activity are gone. There is no revenue at all for maybe 30 days, 45 days. Second important thing is, because of a lack of revenue, the velocity of money in circulation has come down. No money is circulating. People are stuck up. And if they have got receivables, they're not getting the money. If they got payables, they're not paying money. And everything is stuck down everywhere. Now, how does it impact people in many areas? Let us take the bottom of the pyramid. At the bottom of the pyramid, I would estimate that there are about 65 crore people. 65 crore people who are daily wage earners or depend upon day-to-day working, either through unskilled labor or semi-skilled labor for work. Now, they're all impacted because they're not working. There is no work for them. Many of them used to be in the big cities. Many of them in the rural areas. Now they're forced to stay home. Many try to migrate back to the village because they felt it is safer there, and many are stuck in between. They require help. And for them, the government has given them a DBT, a very small amount. The government has said, if you're working somewhere, you can withdraw your PF, because many of them could be contract labor. They've given them 3 months ration and are trying to help them out. But I think this is inadequate, because what they need is cash in hand. They need at least about 300 to 500 rupees a day, not 500 rupees a month. And the government has transferred to 20 crore women's account. So they are in trouble, and I think we have to take care of them. But the good news is, society all over India, in many places, have come forward to make sure they get food, they get rations, and people are contributing and helping them out, but it is inadequate. Now, there's another set of people who are impacted, that is the MSMEs and the people who are in the MSMEs. Now, the MSMEs are deeply hurt. I read a report which said that for the MSMEs, there are only about 25% of the companies, the MSMEs or entities, cannot last more than 30 days because they don't have cash for more than 30 days. But another 25 cannot last more than 3 months because they don't have the liquidity. Most of them are undercapitalized, have no capital, they live off the borrowing, and they're all cash flow businesses. The money doesn't come today, they can't pay yesterday's dues, not tomorrow's dues. So living off the credit that people give them. Now they're all shut. The only way to revive them is for the government to give money for them to pay wages to the people because they employ maybe 35-40% of India's labor. And if they don't have money to pay, they're not able to pay. They probably have made payroll for March because the shutdown came later in March. But this month is going to be terrible because most of them don't have money. The only saving grace is for all the good MSMEs and all the good companies which are current, not an NPA, people like the State Bank of India have given them a 10% increase in their working capital, but they are impacted and they need help directly. Now, there is a middle class, which is a wage earning class who work with bigger companies. They're getting their wages. The companies have the cash. So most of them will retain jobs for some time. We don't know what's going to happen after some time. They got their March salaries. They may get their April salaries. But after that, we have to see what impact the business has to be. Now, these are the three layers of people who require help. Government has held the bottom of the pyramid. In the middle, we've not seen an economic stimulus, and we've not seen anything happen at the top. So what should the stimulus be, and what has the government done? First of all, we have to take care of the bottom of the pyramid. And there, at least you must transfer 2,000 to 3,000 rupees to the account of everybody, to the Jan Dhan accounts for a large number of people so they have money, and give them the rations. This will at least enable them to keep their body and soul together. Yes, government is giving them 3 months free gas. Government has transferred a certain amount of money to them. For the construction workers, they're transferring 2,000 to 3,000 rupees. The state governments like Delhi have given 5,000 rupees, but the UP government has given them money. Karnataka government has given them money through the construction fund. But these are small number. A large number has to be given money. They're given money for old age pension in advance. So I think a larger help has to be given for them for April and May. I do hope the Prime Minister will announce, because at least for the next 3 months, they require help. Now for the MSMEs...
Mohan, what would you think about using some of the RBI resources now? Because it's a crisis. Like we are saying, use the food grains lying in our warehouse, our godowns, which was for a crisis. This is the crisis. Should we not be looking at, we have the largest reserves that the Reserve Bank has ever had in its history, including forex reserve. Could we use some of those to build a fund to support some of this? Could we print more money and not worry about inflation?
See, the RBI has about 7.5-8 lakh crore of rupees, which is there as the exchange variation fund, because they're carrying $475 billion at around 53-54 rupees, whereas it's gone to 76. Maybe the mark to market, let's say 65, well, I don't think the rupee will go below 65, at least 3 to 4 lakh crores available in reserves, and they can remove the reserves and create the government. The money is available with RBI, and RBI has to give the money, because if the government goes to the market to borrow, interest rate may shoot up. There's not enough liquid in the market. I think that's a very good idea. It's time for the RBI to step up. It's time for the government of India to take the money from the RBI through a transfer of reserves from the Reserve Bank's balance sheet to the government balance sheet. And that's a good idea. And that can be given as relief to the MSMEs. It can be given as relief for credit, where they can set up a credit guarantee fund so that MSMEs get working capital limits from the banks, at least to 20-25% the limits, so the government can guarantee the first 10-20% loss of that extra borrowing that is being given. That's a very good idea, Sunil, because even the government borrows, the RBI will have to monetize. There's not enough money in the marketplace. Right now, the state governments borrowed money, and Kerala had to pay 8.5% for a 15-year loan. I think that's very high. So you must think of radical out-of-the-box solutions. I hope you've written that in your document that you're going to give the government, because it's time for the RBI to step up to do this. I think that's a very good idea. But Sunil, there are other things to do. For example, the government has to give tax refunds. They're only giving tax refunds only up to 5 lakhs. Let them give all the income tax refunds. About 40-50,000 crores will come. GST refund, 35-40,000 crores will come to industry. And give that 14% extra money to the states. We must not forget that the state governments are carrying the burden of giving relief to people, because they are dealing with citizens and they need money. They got a shortfall in the GST collection for last year. Government of India guaranteed 14% increase in GST. There's a 35,000 crore shortfall for the whole year, and the government must give them the money, because in times of crisis, what is important is liquidity. State government should have money. People should have money in the market, money in their hands, because this is not a case of solvency. It's a case of liquidity. And liquidity means that you must have access to credit. The last point I will make is for industries at the top. obviously, government has to come out with a package for the aviation industry, the airport industry, the travel industry, the entertainment industry, the tourism industry, and all the such industries which are smaller, which are services-led, and which do not have any staying power, because they're all been shut down, and they'll be shut down for the next 3 to 4 months to a large extent, because for them to come back is going to be difficult. So we need this. So I would estimate a stimulus of at least 5 to 8 lakh crores. Right now, government has given a stimulus of 1.7 lakh crores, out of which only about 70,000-80,000 crores is new. Balance is acceleration of spending that they're planning to do in the budget. I think they must have a 5 to 6 lakh crore and make an announcement as early as possible so people have confidence. Sunil, what I'm afraid is that industry and MSMEs will lose confidence. If they lose confidence, they will start shutting down their enterprises and people will lose jobs. Then let me give some data. There are 8 crore people who are there paid wages from the, we know from the PF and the ESI, out of which 4 crore people could be contract labor. And I think all of them will be let off in the next 2 or 3 months if the people don't get revenue. And that will be terrible. Government has 2.5 crore employees, government has 2 crore pensioners, and government will pay them because the government gets the tax money or they'll borrow to pay them. But these are vulnerable people in the formal sector and they require help. I'll stop here and ask, can give it to Akhil.
Thank you, Mohan. I'm taking this important point that, there has to be a larger initiatives required from the government side as well. And the important point is that it should be done now before it's too late. Sanjeev, if I can come to you and ask you the same question, how do you see this pandemic and its economic impact? And in particularly, if you can touch upon on the job market side, I mean, there are several announcements which people can see in the news where the salary cuts are happening or the headcount is happening because revenue has is steeply fallen. You run Naukri.com, which is one of the largest job portal in India. How do you see what's happening from your website? What's happening in the country?
Thanks, Akhil. I'll just comment quickly first on the comment on RBI giving money to fund government programs.
Sure.
See, I'm not sure that alone is going to be enough because let's understand if the country is shut for 2 months, then where is the government's tax revenue going to go for those 2 months? If nothing is selling, there's no GST, there is nothing, right? And therefore, actually, government probably will have to consider printing more currency. Right, and not just depending on RBI to give. Okay, so I think up until now we've been sort of trying to be fiscally prudent. I think the time has come to perhaps jettison some of that and be open to considering printing more money because you really need a kind of Marshall Plan for India to reconstruct. Second is no matter how much aid the government gives or loan moratorium government gives or DPD government gives. The point is that if you are going to be shut for 1 month or 2 months, you can sustain on this. But if the shutdown extends to 3 or 4 months, then no amount of dole or relief can help you. Ultimately, the wheels of commerce have to start moving. You have to be able to sell to your customers, and your customers have to pay. Because if that does not happen within 2 or 3 months, I think no amount of government support is going to be adequate. So really, you need a sort of a game plan on how are you going to open in 2-3 months, and if so, in what format, in what capacity, what geographies you're going to open, not open, what industries. That needs to be thought through because if the wheels of commerce don't start moving, no amount of government dole can help you for more than 1 or 2 months, right? Now coming to what's happening in the job situation, I think it's pretty grim. Certainly, if you look at our JobSpeak index which we publish every month, there's been a negative 18% YOY. That's in March, and in March the lockdown for 2/3 of March you were open. So I don't know what the April numbers will be like, and this is organized sector. When you go to unorganized sector, you go to SMEs, you go to informal sector. When you go to contract labor, contract workers, temp staff, the cuts are deeper because see the first people to get the axe are actually temp workers and the contract workers because the ones on your rolls will have rights and you would not like to cut them, and then you announce and you downsize. So actually, the job losses and loss of livelihood has been fairly significant already. So I'm not sure this large segments of population can sustain this for more than 2 months. And while the government is doing DBT, the government is doing whatever it can. The truth is, even this DBT thing is reasonably new, I'm not sure it reaches every segment of the population, right? There are so many unaccounted workers, okay? So what will happen there, we don't know. So I think our best chance is, of course, do all this, but at the same time, make sure you can open faster in a planned manner. Because if the wheels of commerce don't start moving, you will have a serious problem.
Yeah, and I hope, Sanjeev, the government is thinking of at least even after 15th, my understanding is that some essential production has to go on. And if we don't do that essential production right now, you may face problem 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the road without their supply chain may be getting affected. Sunilji, you have been working with various governments on various initiatives to deal with the scenario now and think about how things should come back. I would request you to talk about what you have learned from your own thoughts, but also working with various government as to what can be good, smooth comeback.
So one of the things I think we have to acknowledge is the amount of amazing, tremendous work done by governments at all levels. The central government, state government, local administrations, there is just unbelievable amount of work that's been done in India. And I have to say that the heroes are not, well, of course, the healthcare workers are our big heroes, but they're not the only heroes. Somebody who comes and delivers a package to your home is taking a risk. These are the heroes as well. The post is still working. These are heroes as well. So there are just so many things going on. Somebody is going to open his shop to sell vegetables is actually doing a great service to the public. We have to recognize that a large number of Indians have come together in this massive crisis to help us tide over this unprecedented, as Mohan said, we have no idea because this has never happened before. Many companies, many countries will have a scenario planning thing. They all talk of a black swan event that you plan for. But I can tell you, there was nobody who had planned for this. There have been, by the way, prior warnings that this is a possibility over the last 10 to 15 years. This subject has come up at least 8 or 10 occasions when people have said there is a likelihood of something like this happening. When the Ebola hit the world, when HIV started spreading, we have had a series of things when SARS came, when H1N1 came. Each time the world said we need to sit up and take notice that pandemics can happen, endemics can happen, that we need to prepare ourselves better. We are not spending enough on health, healthcare, public health, and preparation for black swan events. So whenever there's a crisis, we all, of course, gather around quickly and start to do things. But I think this is making people to sit up and think that we do need to do more for the future to be prepared to handle a crisis which is not the normal kind of crisis that we see in our lives, in business, in administration and public life, etc. So the question that both Mohan and Sanjeev had flagged is very critical. The debate is between lives and livelihood. If you stay locked down, it is very likely that we will be able to break the chain of the spread will not be as rapid as it could be in some other countries. But the economic pandemic is at the same time glaring us in the face. It's literally staring us in the face that if we are not able to provide succor and daily wages to the daily wagers, they do not have food to eat the next day. The support that is being offered by governments in shelters, by philanthropists, by companies, by individuals is for a very small percentage of those who have actually been displaced. Many people got up from where they were and started moving, trying to get back to their homes or wherever they felt they would be safer. And a majority of them got stopped on the way. And that number is very, very large. So I think on the one hand, we need to make sure the humanitarian crisis is managed. At the same time, economic activity in a very sensible, balanced manner needs to be started off, but only in a graded manner should it grow. We should not throw open the doors and start pulling everything back to the same level where we were 2 months ago, because the ability of this pandemic to come back and hit us with large numbers is very high, as we've seen in many other countries. So I think this is the very thing the government and policymakers are struggling with. All industry associations, individuals, economists, think tanks have made documents, made recommendations and suggestions, and tomorrow the Prime Minister is going to talk to the nation at 10 o'clock. I expect that he will tell us that there is a need for us to continue precaution for much longer. But in order for economic activity to come back, some sectors of the economy, some sections of the industry will be allowed to function at a low capacity, at a low percentage. The numbers being discussed are between 20 and 30% of their capacity. And the people will have to be managed well. The first recommendation that has come is that if you have a factory, house the people inside the factory in safe conditions and follow every precaution that you need to follow. But the reality is, if you start any company, any business, any industry vertical, every part of the value chain has to work. And the value chain may be spread geographically across some of the areas which will fall into the hot spot, the red zones or the orange zones. So we don't have a clear answer at this moment. So the support that both Mohan and Sanjeev had talked about is actually an essential component. The government has to put its hand in its pocket at this moment and say, we will print more, we will not worry about inflation for the moment. Even though we have a BBB rating by global agencies, we will allow ourselves additional money to be printed, and we will define where that money is going to be used for productive assets and to specifically address the pandemic and the response to the pandemic. I'm certain there is no rating agency in the globe which will actually object to that and lower our rating only because we've done that, because this is a situation facing the world. It's not unique to India. It's not unique to any part of India. I think Sanjeev has a point to make. I
have a point to make. You see, up until now, all the conversation is happening about reopening factories and manufacturing and essential goods. But the truth is 56 to 60% of our GDP is coming from services, right? And a big chunk of government tax and revenue are going to come from services, because all the tax on services, because that's a big part of the GDP. So, and a large number of people are employed in services also. So I think you need to look at opening up service sector as well. You can't just partly open manufacturing and not open services. So you've got to do both.
So the thing with services, Sanjeev, what the beauty that we've all discovered suddenly is that technology can actually be an amazing tool for work, even remotely. Of course, it takes away a lot of the efficiency, but it's not become zero. When you shut a factory, it becomes zero. It's just stopped.
Well, actually, sir, the problem is selling to customers, getting them to buy. So the revenue will not come unless you open. The production can happen at home, from home, but unless customers buy, the things are not going to move actually.
I'm violently agreeing with you, by the way. I also believe that my view is the same, but all I'm saying is all of us will need to take the responsibility because many other countries have followed a much more relaxed lockdown than the one we have in India. There was some article in the Times the other day which said India ranks number 1 on two counts. One, it has the tightest lockdown in the world right now. Two, it has given the lowest support to the economy of any country, any major economy so far.
Yeah.
Now, the first one sounds good because you are actually helping, but the second one is for me a bit concerning. And if we do this in dribs and drabs, because it is clear the government is seized of this matter, they have spoken about doing more, but it would be very effective if you do it in large doses upfront rather than do it in dribs and drabs and drag it over a long period of time, because the expectation is it's still some months away before we can come to any kind of near normal situation. Even if you start part of the economy now, it will be a very small part of the economy. Hopefully it's a small part because we also don't want to put the whole system back at risk.
Yeah, certainly, and the stringent lockdown was required in India. Otherwise, India is not to. There were still some instances which you don't want virus to spread and continue to surge in the country. The good part is that at least is not as bad as many other part of the world. But if I can change gears and look a bit of into future, Mohan, coming to you, and I can't not talk to you about technology. The way last 3 weeks organization functions have drastically changed. The level of digital adoption, whether it's in form of virtual meetings, work from home, even this conference we are doing on a digital platform rather than physical meeting. How do you see the new normal going forward, the way we're going to conduct business?
Akhil, my view is that the coronavirus is an inflection point in the lives of most people around the world. Digitization has been coming along, but for the people about 30, it has been slower than the people below 30 because it started about 10, 15 years ago. And that generation grew up on technology. The generation that comes after them who are now 15 or 14, they're born to the technology. For example, they're all on Instagram, 15 to 30 or on Facebook, okay? And about 30, fewer people on Facebook, I think, because, they look at it differently. Now, everybody has been shut and kept in a particular place. The way of interacting with the world for getting their supplies is e-commerce. It is on the mobile phone. The entertainment is on a mobile phone. Education is a mobile phone. Communication is on a mobile phone. Getting health advisory is a mobile phone. Getting information is on a mobile phone. Everything is done through the mobile. Everything is digital. And suddenly they're beginning to enjoy it because they feel that the air is getting fresher. There is no traffic outside. The stress levels are down, even though you're worried about your job and anything else. And you don't want to spend so much time at home with the family and your wife and everybody else because, you're used to your freedom away from everybody and somebody takes care of your family. So I think this is changing the way people live. And now it goes on for another 15 days. For many of us, it'll be 45 days. Most of us, 30 to 35 days. That means when we get out of this, are we going to change? So all businesses have to relook how they're going to reach customers, how they're going to work in future, how they're going to engage with their employees, and how they're going to order their affairs. So everything they do has to be reworked, the strategies have to be redone. And work also is going to change. I think all enterprises will have 25, 30, 40% of people working from home all the time through rotation, because they need to be prepared for a time when people can work from home, the costs can come down and everything else. Second, people are seeing that with the level of automation, digitization, they don't need the same amount of people. They're beginning to ask the question, why do I need large workforces? Why can't I participate in the gig economy and get people on contract as and when I want them? Because everything is available, the platforms are available, you can reach out to people. Now, customers are all talking and saying that, why should I pay you so much of money? Why can't you give me a discount? So pricing is going to be contaminated in future because people will say, I don't have money. If you want to do business, this is what I'm going to pay you, take it or leave it. And people will be desperate for business. So the money that you get from customers is also going to be impacted. Then people are asking the question, why should I travel so much? I can, like Sunil said, I can go and do video conferencing. I can use technology. I don't have to travel. And people are finding that they're possibly more productive without all the meetings that are there. I'm sure, Akhil, as Deputy CEO, you're having lesser meetings, faster meetings, better, more productive. And then you'll ask the question when you go to office, why should we have so many meetings? Because in most large enterprises, meetings are there to keep the top people occupied because they don't have enough work. When you don't have enough work, you call for too many meetings. Meeting disrupts people's life. People have to travel. People have to answer. Next is asking for excessive information, excessive reporting. All that will come down. So I think the way of work, the way people work is going to change forever. And much of the things that we used to do, travel and meeting people or having conferences and having everything else will change. For example, what Sunil is doing for MindMind with this kind of a conference is wonderful. Through this, you can reach maybe 100 million people through the web. I mean, if you have a conference, you can have 2,000 people. Maybe some people will log on, but here you can deal with a lot of people. And people can come there from the comfort of their houses or the prisons in which they stay in their house and engage. So I think the way of life will change, business will change, digitization will accelerate, new models will come up, and those in the digital economy, I'm sure Sanjeev will chip in, will ask the question, why should I subsidize the consumer? Why can't I charge him properly? Because I'm giving him a very good service, and they will make sure they're viable and they're beginning to grow. And when this ends, a lot of people who don't have cash, the marginal players will come down. There'll be lesser competition. It does not mean that prices will increase for the rest of them because consumption will come down. Like Sunil said, people are used to consuming less and people are unsure about the jobs. So consumption will come down for some time till the memory fades away, at least for the next, maybe this rest of this calendar year. So I think we are at the inflection point, lots of changes in every facet of our work. Business has to reorient its strategy, how to sell, how to work with people, what kind of work to do, etc.
Thanks, Mohan. I can tell you, even firms like KPMG is already talking about whether why does everybody need to come to office every day. Just 3 weeks have taught us that. Sunilji, if I may ask you, how do you see the new normal, and more so, how do we get to the new normal when this lockdown is getting over, partial activity will start? What are the various phases of which we have to go through? I'm not expecting that if lockdown is over from 15th, the life will be back to normal from day one. How do you see this transition back to life to normal?
So, Akhil, I'd like to talk about the 5 R's that I think we need to address now. Some of that we've begun. The first is resolve. We've already shown resolve as a nation that we will address this squarely head on. And we are demonstrating that in every aspect, whether it's government, industry, civil society, migrant labor, everybody is actually chipping in right now. The next, we have to demonstrate resilience now. In a tough situation, how will we make do? The next one is going to be return to normality, whatever is the new norm. And for that, we need reimagination. We need to reimagine the new normal for India. And the last of the 5 will be a reformed way of working. So both of them in some sense alluded to this earlier. Mohan just said it squarely, that there will be a new normal once we get out of this. And I think that's one where all of us need to apply our minds to think about how much physical space do I need? What cost structure am I going to build? Can I no longer accept the old model of fixed cost and variable cost and say fixed has to be compressible too? Fixed has to have a variable component in it. Fixed has to be a deferrable cost too. So I think there are many aspects to businesses that we have to turn into our new normal. And as also how we interact, how we communicate, how we sell, our price models, I think many of these will come into question. For some things, we will spring back to what we have been used to. We will forget this. Human nature is such. But for some, this change is now permanent. And it's the smarter companies who will figure out where this permanent change is, and those which will make it early, who will actually benefit from this. I have already spoken with many companies who are spending a lot of time in this time saying, all the people who are at home, we want them to spend a few hours at work, but then we want them to spend a few hours opening their own mind, finding out their passions, because that makes for a better person. And then coming back to us with the new ideas and how their role will run, how the company should actually operate in the future. So we are actually at a very exciting, if you look at it from that point of view, from a theorist point of view, from a researcher's point of view, from a social scientist point of view, it is the most exciting time that history has ever shown us. So it is absolutely phenomenal. On the one hand, it's a crisis, but the crisis leading to the kind of change that we could never have imagined. It's accelerated our progress in some ways. It will hold us back in some ways. Medical science itself is now looking at different ways of addressing the same problem. About 3 weeks ago, there were 5 companies which had trials going on in 4 countries. In this period, there are 96 trials going on 54 formulations already. And they're going on every kind, the normal pharmaceuticals, the virologists, the plasma specialists. So every aspect of health science, Ayurvedic treatments are now being tested by some of the large hospitals to see. And then when we say people at high risk with comorbidities, how can you address these together? How can you address them separately? So it's an amazing amount of human enterprise that we are seeing coming out. And I'm very hopeful. I'm very positive that we will not just come out of this, that we will come out of this having demonstrated our resolve and come out of it better. Better able to handle our future. We will have a pain for a while. We have to recognize that as well. The economic pain is going to last for over a year. Mohan said this calendar year. My personal feeling is it's going to be definitely longer than this calendar year.
Akhil, if I can add to what Sunil says, I think globally there's going to be a tremendous change, because today the world has become vulnerable to things in China. The global supply chain, most of it leads to China. China makes some component or something is exported, which is there all around the world in everything that people buy. So this vulnerability towards China is something that worries most countries. But the global supply chain will be reordered. The reliance on China will come down. They will look at alternate countries. They look at taking work back to their own country to set up automated manufacturing. So the world is going to change in terms of the economic order, and the global supply chain will change. And it means that countries like Japan are now paying the enterprises to reduce dependence on China. The United States is very clear out of the trade war that they want much of the things to come back to the United States, and American companies are relocating to Southeast Asia, maybe India, maybe Europe, etc. Europe is relooking at its dependence and raising up the fortress. So I think globalization will be heard, and I think the global order will have to change. Now, when this comes to a when this ends, you'll find that many countries in Europe are no longer productive. If you look at Italy, what is happening, north of Italy is almost taken over by the Chinese, and the Chinese have bought up many of these companies. Many large companies in Europe have seen the value come down, and the Europeans are shutting the door and say, you can't come and buy these companies because they want to protect. The United States is still open, but wary about the Chinese. So all round, I think when this whole thing ends, many companies will not come up, and government will have larger problems, and Europe as a continent will see a decline in economic action. Now, what about Africa, and what about South America? Africa is a case in point. I think in Africa will be heard because Africa exports commodities, and commodity prices have come down. So Africa has to relocate itself, and Africa has to improve its health infrastructure. The virus is also there. South America has Brazil, which is trying to keep it open. So there's a challenge. We see the integration of Mexico, Canada, and America through the North Atlantic Treaty. They got a new name for it. I think the US will depend more on Mexico rather than on China, rather than elsewhere. Now you're going to see the UK after Brexit come down and try to create a new order, because UK's future rights the rest of the world. So it's fascinating to see how countries are going to react, where global economic power is going to be. But the fact remains, China's power has risen. China has got great manufacturing, large amount of reserves, a population which has got 600 million people in the middle class. It will increase its local consumption. It will not be able to export more, but it has the financial resources to come out of it because of its economic order and the huge amount of savings that are there. India, Japan will have a bigger alliance because the Japanese know the future lies with India. Otherwise, the Chinese will come and eat their lunch. They eaten their breakfast already. And the United States will try to make new allies to take care of China, because it's very clear that China is a new hegemon with the United States. The world is not unipolar anymore, even though it's unipolar in military terms, in the defense terms, in economic terms. I think it's become multipolar. It is China and the Chinese bloc with America and the rest of the world. So we want to see the change, and that's going to impact India.
Akhil, you would have got questions. You want to take some of those now from the audience?
Yes, I'm conscious of time. There are few interesting questions which have come from the audience. Ajay, can we get them across to the panelists, please?
Hi. Thank you very much for this enriching discussion which you have had, panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been receiving a number of interesting questions from some of you. And I'm going to request some selected ones to be picked up now. Can we have, the first question comes from Ms. Dipali Nair, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at IBM South Asia. Over to you, ma'am.
Hi. So my question is...
Can I, just one moment, can I request, just one moment. Can I request all the mics to be turned off except the person who's talking? We are still picking up background noise. There's some place that children playing around which are getting picked up by the mics.
Thank you. Mr. Munjal, first of all, my compliments for getting this done. Very well done, and lots of interesting topics that came up. But I want to ask you a separate question, which is that human spirit, always defines what will come in future. And in that context, I believe that, generations' psyche get impacted because of negative influences such as this. So millennials in the US, for example, are defined by the 9/11. My grandparents' generation was defined by the freedom struggle. What I want you to opine is that the generation, which is the youth today, how will they get impacted in future on concepts such as ROI, consumerism, or instant gratification. How do you think this generation is going to react? How will they be like immediately after COVID? And how will they be like 5 years from now because of this?
I think in some manner, both Mohan and I actually replied to your question already. One is that the immediate impact of this is going to be great deal of caution. Caution on how you do things, how you travel. I don't think people will easily get onto a bus if the bus is already full. They'll say, I'll wait for the next one. So the behavior will start to get affected in that manner in the immediate aftermath. And I'm saying once we come out of this, during this, of course, you have to be careful. But these are things which will not be long-term changes. These will spring back. People will take flights. They will go on trains. So, but what will change, I believe, is the way we look at things of consumerism, cost, communication, and many of these are actually driven by or supplemented by the kind of technologies that we have or in the pipeline. So companies like yours actually in some ways are creating the platforms for us to be able to lead the new life that we are leading ourselves into. Now for us, it's a change. For the new generation, it will be the self-evident truth because they will actually grow up with this. It's like I see many times my wife, when she has a problem with the TV, she calls her granddaughter and she takes her an instant. She's not even 8 years old yet. It takes her an instant to turn to whatever you want it to. So for these kids, this is the new normal. And you're right about the human spirit. These are also a test for human spirit, both individual as also collective, which is why you see behavior being different from region to region and country to country.
Thank you.
Question, ma'am? Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question is from Mr. Saurabh Srivastava, who's the founder of India Angel Network and is a well-known personality. Sir, Saurabh, sir.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Mr. Srivastava. You can go ahead.
So please go ahead with your question.
So the question I really had is that you quite rightly, as you said, Sunil, the government is doing a lot, and very correctly, it's initially focused on the poor because we have many more of them than, let's say, the US or wherever. But what I do find is many countries, the US, Germany, etc., are also getting very focused on what will happen post-COVID. And they realize that the countries that will win and create jobs, employment, all that faster, are the ones that are fastest to get off the block. So if you look at the US package, $2 trillion, 1/6 of it is for startups. Now, if you look at the resolve, if you look at the resilience, if you look at innovation, startups have been at the fore over here trying to create solutions. So this did come up, but would you think, and the other panelists, that perhaps the printing of money, I mean, the US has never bothered about printing money. Should we really be doing a bunch of that, not only to take care of what happens today, but to see how quickly can we get off the blocks when we are post-COVID, so we improve our competitive positioning with other countries?
I'm going to leave Sanjeev and Mohan to answer this because I think I did answer it earlier already. Sanjeev, you want to take that first?
No, let Mohan do it. I think Mohan has a lot of data on startups.
Yeah, I think the wonderful question. You see, when there's an inflection point and the digital world takes over, it means innovation and technology are going to be the differentiator between countries. But innovation and technology are the differentiator. Two things have to happen. One is research and development has to be enhanced so that we are ahead of the game in knowledge creation. And the second important thing is that we need implementation of that innovation across. Implementation happens through startups and new companies which have come up. And now, if you look at the India today, Reliance Jio has transformed India. Imagine we were in a situation without Jio. We would be in a mess. We will not have 4G. We will not have this kind of high bandwidth. We won't be able to do what it is. We won't have enough capacity. So India has to relook at the model in future, invest more in startups. We have suggested a 50,000 crore fund to kickstart startups for the next 5 years, Saurabh, for the government to do. I hope the government invests in the future, and the government also invests in the bottom of the pyramid to give sustenance to people. It has to invest in the future. And the young people in India who are entrepreneurs, led by some slightly older people like Sanjeev, who has already built great companies, have to lead the way. We need hundreds and thousands of entrepreneurs. They are there. They need capital. And at this point of weakness and strength, government has to pump in money. And we want our industry stalwarts of billionaires to put in a lot more money into innovation to make a future.
Akhil, may I say something?
Ji.
So Akhil, this is not to answer this question. This is actually to address the earlier point which both Mr. Munjal and Mohan spoke about, which is everything will change. So my view is everything might change. On the other hand, it might not change depending on how the scenario pans out. Right? So, we respond very fast in a crisis. It's a crisis. We responded fast. We've adapted. Now, if things revert to normal in 3 months, let's say for whatever reason, let's say, in India's heat, the virus is not so lethal. In, the Indian demographics, lots of young people, they're not really badly impacted. Whatever reason, let's say virus goes away or is not under control in 3 months' time or 2 months' time. I'm predicting that if that happens, should it happen, things will revert back to normal pretty soon, right? In terms of practices and habits and behavior, right? Not in terms of bottom line and P&L, because that will take 6 to 9 months, maybe, for things to come back. Scenario 2, a vaccine is developed in 6 months and goes universal in 12 months. So effectively, you've licked the problem in 12 months. Again, things will go back to normal in terms of practices and behavior and conduct and beliefs, right? However, let's say it's a disaster which takes 3 years to sort of get over it. Then things will change for a long term. Right? So I'm saying I have got an open mind on this. I don't know which scenario will pan out. I'm saying it depends.
No, sure.
But I totally agree with Mohan's point that companies around the world, in the developed world, will reduce their dependence on China. That is a given. That is going to happen.
Sunilji, you're saying something?
Yeah, no, I was just saying that I do not know if I clarified enough earlier. When I said everything is changed, I also said many things will spring back to normal because that is human nature. We will have a combination of the existing work style and culture, and some of it will be an overlay of new things, which will be a permanent change. The permanent change will not and cannot be in everything. And by the way, in our kind of diverse society, it must not be on everything. It must try and address all of them in the most appropriate manner.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Srivastava. Ajay, is there another question?
So we have time for just one last quick question. Thank you very much, sir. The last question is from Dr. Chandan Chaudhary, who's an executive director and a professor at Indian School of Business. Dr. Chaudhary, if you could quickly ask your question, please.
Mr. Chaudhary, you are on mute.
What is your assessment about indigenization drive post COVID-19 and how to make the initiative successful?
Who would like to take that question?
Yes.
I think Mr. Munjal is best placed for that one.
So it's also a unique opportunity for India, as when Mohan said that the world, so many companies in the world have created what they call a 1+1 strategy right now. That while they don't want to completely get out of China, they do not want to be entirely dependent on China as the only source of supply. And this is especially for manufactured goods, but increasingly happening in technology. As you know, America has been working as a technology leader in the world for a long time. In deep tech, China has already moved ahead of them. So you'll never be able to completely ignore them. They're too large an economy now and too deeply entrenched in the entire value system of the world. But for a country like India, it is a unique opportunity. So the government, by the way, seized of this. Directly under the Finance Ministry and separately in the Niti Aayog, there are 2 initiatives going on, as also in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. There are 3 initiatives going on. where they are directly going and addressing companies who are likely candidates for setting up businesses, industry, or otherwise in a new country. As you know, Japan recently announced the largest economic package to support their country. And within that, through the current situation, within that they have a small pocket which is specifically for Japanese companies to set up their facilities in countries other than China. Those who are highly dependent on China, they are being told even by the government of Japan, but it's not just the government. Companies themselves worldwide are doing this. So we have a unique opportunity. The opportunity, by the way, has been there for over a year and a half when the US-China trade war started, but we took less advantage of it than did countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, a little bit Malaysia, and even Bangladesh. So it is time for us to get smart about this, because once a facility comes in, once a business comes in, even if it gets sold, the business remains here. So the value add remains in the country. So it is important for us to get smart and specifically target enterprises across the globe for whom we have a unique and a beneficial business environment where they can set up businesses and benefit from it.
Yeah, very, very valid points, Sunilji, and I'm just hoping that this time Indian government will be able to act faster, and rather than all Japanese companies going to Vietnam and Thailand and any other place, but half of them should come to India at least. Okay, Ajay, anything?
Ladies and gentlemen, I am sure all of you would have got interesting insights from this webinar. To capture the mood of the audience as well as the panelists, there is a small poll which has been lined up. We'll just put up on the screen, and there are going to be three options: agree, disagree, or maybe, which will just be displayed on your screen. Yes. So the question is, what are the opportunities post-lockdown? So the question for the poll is that many new and different opportunities lie on the other side of this lockdown. You have three options: agree, disagree, can't say. Including our panelists can also answer this.
I've done that.
Yeah. Yes. So we'll just have the results in next few seconds after everybody has done that.
Wonderful. 93% agree.
A nation of hopefuls, and we are all looking forward to the opportunities post this lockdown. Thank you very much. I hand over to the moderator to take over the proceedings from now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. With this eminent panel, I could have spent 3 days and still not collected enough wisdom. 1 hour is not enough time for me to collect all the wisdom. But there is, of course, constraint of time always. If I were to take few learnings from this session, I would classify into 3 segments: now, transition, and future. If we look at now, I think we have to realize that we are going through one of the biggest crises ever seen in our lifetime. And it's concerning about health and humanity, and therefore how to contain this virus. It is of the most importance, the critical importance, excuse me, at this point of time. So therefore, whether it is the government or it is the society, all of us are working and have to work together to ensure that in next couple of weeks' time, we are able to contain this virus and kill the virus, so to say. But also, I realized that, if in next few weeks' time, if you are not able to contain it, the term used, whether livelihood is more important or life is more important, probably 4 weeks later, 6 weeks later, in various segments, especially bottom of the pyramid, the livelihood will become more important than life. So therefore, it is a serious situation. It has to be dealt that way. When it comes to the transition, I think as we will start moving towards opening up some essential production. I think a lot is required because everybody in the society from top to bottom of the pyramid has been affected. Especially the bottom of the pyramid has to be really supported, and a lot more has to be done than the government has already announced. I'm sure government is working on many, many more things, and few announcements are on the anvil. But the important point is that these announcements, these packages should be done sooner than later. But having said that, when it comes to the future, as is shown in the survey, and none of the panelists talked about the doomsday. It is always, there may be changes, there may be many positive changes, there may be a redefined, reformed scenarios, but the world and especially India will keep on looking positive and probably stronger than ever before. With that, I would like to conclude. Many thanks to all three of you for sharing such insightful and wonderful thoughts. Sunilji.
May I say thank you to both the panelists and to you, Akhil. Thank you for doing this for us. The MindMine Institute would like to bring more of these if the people like. So all of you who are logged on, if you found this interesting and you would like to see more of these, please send a message and also send us the subjects that you think would be of interest to you. We will try and bring to you contemporary thinkers, serious thinkers of the kind that you had today with the two gentlemen here. So thank you all very much. It was, I think, a useful, productive 1 hour, and hopefully each of us would have got something from this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay healthy.
Bye, Mohan.
Bye.